Story 1. When you see children playing outside unsupervised and people walking dogs at night without looking over their shoulders. Story 2. We always said the wave test. Walking or driving down the street and waving at the neighbors who are out and about. Story 3. How neighbors interact with each other. I moved into a neighborhood where everyone knows each other, and I have never felt more comfortable. The other day, a neighbor heard me playing guitar and asked if I wanted to jam. My Italian neighbor brings us extra pizzas from her son's pizza truck. My next-door neighbor and I mow each other's modest front lawns when we do our own. It is the neighborhood Mr. Rogers sent me to find. Story 4. Children playing outside with their bicycles not secured. Livable if you do not mind the sound of children. Story 5. As someone who grew up in a pleasant suburb, some signs are people running at all hours of the day by themselves, both males and females. Children biking without their parents. Quiet is also very good and underrated. I miss that sometimes living in the city, but now I am constantly hearing car beeps or music at odd hours. Also, you feel safe walking or getting home even late at night. Story 6. People out and about at night. Those men making some noise every night on the corner, drinking beer and eating food on a small grill. They are always present and keeping an eye on things. Much safer than an empty, quiet block. Story 7. Sounds weird, but people are parking correctly. Parking on the correct side of the street, with the cars facing the right direction, not parked in yards or blocking sidewalks or fire hydrants. Story 8. One thing I have noticed is the lack of litter and overall trash on the streets and sidewalks. This shows that the local residents take pride in their community. Story 9. To paraphrase Christopher Rock, if you see women out in sweatpants in the middle of the day, walking and pushing strollers, you are in a nice neighborhood. If you see men out in sweatpants in the middle of the day, you are in danger. Story 10. I think the presence of pedestrians is the best indicator. Children playing, people jogging or walking leash dogs. People outside keep a watchful eye and deter anything bad that might happen. I think well-kept houses are a good sign, but I have to say there are plenty of working parents, seniors, and disabled nice people who do not keep their yards in perfect order. Story 11. Toys, bikes, and scooters are left outside. Soccer nets and basketball hoops are set up in the front. The garage door is open with no person immediately visible. Children are playing outside without an adult immediately present. People wave back when you wave to them. There is not a lot of street traffic at any given time during the day. Homeowners are outside maintaining their yards on the weekends. Story 12. A few feet of grass between the road and the sidewalk. Trees provide shade over the street and sidewalk. Guaranteed safe neighborhood. Story 13. Many families can usually be identified by the presence of minors who appear unafraid. Story 14. Healthy, well-maintained, mature trees are one of my first metrics. It is not certain, but I see good trees as a strong indicator of a good neighborhood. Story 15. Those free library boxes on the front lawns, well-kept and filled with romance novels, are an excellent indicator. Story 16. Intergenerational interactions occur when a teenager chats with an elderly woman or a middle-aged woman with a dog discusses the weather with their 20-something neighbor. Usually, this is a good sign that people get along and have formed a community. Story 17. Go to the local Walmart. Are they checking people's receipts on the way out? Are many products locked up? Story 18. Do the homework. Get in a car and see what the neighborhood looks like after 9 p.m. on a weeknight or weekend. If you want to live there, you should see what kind of environment suits you before buying. Story 19. No young men hanging out at the gas station, liquor stores, or in front of apartments. No graffiti, no abandoned shopping carts in residential neighborhoods, and no abandoned or foreclosed businesses or homes. Story 20. Green space can be shared, common, or yards. Pull up the satellite view on Google Maps in many cities, and the areas without green space will quickly show you where the rough neighborhoods are. Story 21. There are few buy here pay here used car dealerships around town. There is also a lack of payday loan locations and pawn shops. Story 22. Children riding bicycles around the neighborhood. I would say most cities are too dangerous in many ways for children to enjoy this simple activity. Story 23. The lack of grown adult men with neck tattoos riding children's bikes is one indication of a safe neighborhood. Story 24. I can leave my garage open and it is safe. When you see children riding bikes in the street and just being kids, it feels comforting. My wife and mother-in-law can walk up and down the street while pushing a stroller, and all my neighbors wave and want to chat. At night, you can see stars because there are no street lights. It is cool to randomly see fireflies flying in my front yard and my neighbors' yards. Story 25. People are out and about, including singles, families, older adults, and children. There are businesses mixed in with residential blocks that one can walk or bike to. There are dedicated sidewalks and bike lanes for this purpose. People have attractive, low-key exterior lighting such as solar path lights, if they have any. There are no motion sensor floodlights near their doors. Story 26. I noticed my neighborhood was safe when I kept seeing elderly ladies walking their dogs at 10 p.m. Now I do my evening jogs at that time too. And there is a whole community of night walkers who look out for each other. Story 27. Those free little libraries people set up on their front yards are like kiosks with books in them, and they are free. People take and leave books based on the honor system. They do not last more than a week in poor neighborhoods because they get vandalized. So when I see one well taken care of and full of books, I assume it is a better neighborhood than others. Story 28. For what it's worth, I believe I live in a great neighborhood. Here are a few trends I didn't notice until I lived here for a while. Neighbors spontaneously gathering to chat, usually in the street or someone's front yard. Front porch or front yard patio furniture to facilitate the prior point. Maintained yards. I didn't notice this much until my teenager started asking to be dropped off with friends in neighborhoods that didn't have this. It doesn't need to be homeowners association perfect, but you want to see many more houses with cut lawns and maintained shrubs than without them. Dumpsters and portable toilets. What? Yes. At least for older neighborhoods, you want to see signs that some houses are being renovated or improved. Of everything I posted, this is the most underrated. This helps ensure equity in your investment. Possibly controversial, but women walking or jogging alone. The women I know have a sixth sense for unsafe conditions and won't risk it if their intuition alerts them in the slightest way. Story 29. Women wearing yoga pants pushing baby strollers in the morning. If you see young men in sweatpants riding bicycles when they should be at work, it is a bad sign. Story 30. The goodness of most neighbors can be proportionally tied to the amount of trash and litter on the street, in yards, and in the alleys almost directly. Clean with little or no trash is probably a decent place. Trash, fast food containers, bottles, cans, cigarette butts, and similar items everywhere is probably not a good area. Story 31. Good cell phone signal everywhere. It sounds simple, but it means the infrastructure is solid, and carriers actually invest in covering the area properly. Also, check if people are out walking dogs early in the morning or late in the evening. That usually means people feel comfortable being outside when it is quiet. Story 32. People walking dogs, women alone with their children, families walking with or without dogs, and neighborhoods that close the streets at 9 p.m. and become very quiet afterward. Story 33. Someone said that the fact my neighbors all have chairs and benches on their front porches, which we use regularly, indicates that it is safe. We are close enough to see each other but far enough apart that conversations do not carry. Story 34. Little free libraries. If people value books enough to make them accessible, and no one is stealing or damaging them, it is at least a step above casual vandalism. Story 35. Lack of window, door, and gate security. Minimal fences around properties, manicured lawns and plantings, clean homes, nothing dilapidated. Story 36. People's homes, yards, trees, fences, and vehicles appear well-maintained instead of dilapidated. The windows of people's homes do not contain aluminum foil and are not boarded up with plywood unless a hurricane is approaching. Front yards are not fenced, and dogs are not chained in people's yards. People park in their garages or in a neat and orderly fashion on their driveways and on the correct side of the street. not haphazardly and not in their yards. Project vehicles are kept in the garage. Payday loan businesses, pawn shops, massage parlors, head shops, adult video stores, and similar establishments are not present. Story 37. You can rest assured that your package will remain at your doorstep while you are out of the house all day. Story 38. Kids are playing outside. Garages are left open and unattended. The nearest grocery store is clean and feels safe. Story 39. People walking their dogs, walking with their children and smiling. Houses and yards are well kept. Story 40. Slow down, kids crossing. Soccer and basketball nets visible. Neighbors chatting in the front yard are all good signs. Another good sign is roadside conversations. If you can drive down the street and see more than 4 people just relaxing and chatting by the road, you are in a nice spot. Story 41. The sound of children playing. Dog walkers picking up their dog's waste. People smiling, waving, and exchanging greetings. Story 42. Kids playing and riding their bikes, scooters, and skateboards in the neighborhood. People working outside in their gardens and relaxing on their porches. Families grilling food in their yards. People casually walking their dogs around the neighborhood, including the elderly taking walks. Runners and joggers in the neighborhood. People stopping for casual chats with neighbors in front of houses and on the sidewalk. No metal bars on windows and doors. Story 43. Those little free libraries that some people set up in their front lawns. A neighbor down our block set one up a few years ago, and when I noticed it, I had to think, wait, is my neighborhood actually that safe? Story 44. Some things I can think of are golf carts being driven around, lots of people walking or running at night, kids playing mostly unattended. People invest money to decorate their house for special occasions and holidays. Nice sidewalk or walking path to exercise. Garages open and converted into gyms or extra socializing spaces. People spend money on services like power washing to keep their home looking nice. Story 45. I knew I was in a good area when someone left a bicycle on their front lawn overnight and it was still there the next morning. Where I lived before, that bicycle would have been gone in 15 minutes flat. Story 46. Lots of houses in my neighborhood have small free libraries where people can exchange or take books they want to read. Story 47. Movement, people coming and going here, and there is a good thing. A group hanging out on a corner doing nothing is not so good. An area that can sustain local shops, restaurants, gyms, neighborhood theaters, or small bars is a good thing. If you only see liquor stores, gas stations, currency exchanges, and hair salons, that is not so good. Story 48. People actually use their front porches here, not just for decoration but for sitting out there, drinking coffee and reading books. I was walking my dog yesterday and counted 7 different neighbors just relaxing outside. Story 49. Valuable or semi-valuable items lying around people's yards and outside their houses that would be stolen in other areas. Story 50. Lone women, like many said, out walking or jogging at any time of day. Even small groups of women. If women are outside, it is a good sign. Children playing outside whenever they are not in school or sleeping. This may sound unusual, but I avoid neighborhoods with houses in obvious disrepair. When there are enough such houses on one street, the area deteriorates. Look into the broken window theory for more information. Story 51. Fewer Nissan, Chrysler, and Dodge products. I am not kidding. This may be the equivalent of Domino's indicator for neighborhoods. Story 52. Besides what they are saying in the comments, people are walking and running all the time. The other thing I would say is, if you see lawns that are beautiful, people who take pride in their lawns. Those lawns are generally in safer areas, as there is no vandalism around those areas. Story 53. A neighborhood dog park without pit bull terriers. Look in the early evenings for children on bicycles in cul-de-sacs. Soccer at the local elementary schools. Children's sports. Story 54. If you drive through it at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday and do not see many grown men walking around, but you see mothers and children, the fathers are at work. In other words, they do not party all night or commit many crimes. Story 55. Women going for a walk in the middle of the afternoon? You are in a nice neighborhood. Men going for a walk in the middle of the afternoon? You are probably in a rough neighborhood. Story 56. The cars parked outside. Are they all commercial vehicles such as vans, pickups, and taxis? This indicates a working-class local demographic. Are they all family cars or small cars typically driven by elderly people? Nice neighborhood. Or is there a mixture of absolute pieces of junk and shiny cars that look way too expensive? Then you have a poor neighborhood with some people who earn money through illegitimate means. Story 57. Older adults walking for fitness versus older adults walking due to lack of transportation. Story 58. In my neighborhood, from 7 to 8 in the morning, there is a dog walk parade. At least 15 regular participants join, and many stop to chat along the way. Story 59. The neighbor kid just knocked on my door and asked if he could mow our lawn this weekend. He is knocking on everyone's door in the neighborhood at dusk by himself. Story 60. Tour it during a weekday and drive it on a weeknight. If there are not significantly more vehicles, then not everyone is employed. Story 61. When you never hear sirens and police only conduct drive-through patrols less than twice a week. Sirens are not necessarily from police, but a lack of fire alarms means infrastructure is newer or in good condition and people are responsible. A lack of emergency medical services likely indicates a younger population. Areas with higher police call volumes will receive more frequent patrols, either because they are hotspots monitored by supervisors aiming to reduce major crimes, or because officers are actively seeking incidents. Story 62. If there is a donut shop and a grocery store at a nearby corner, then you are probably in a decent suburban area. If there is a Boost mobile store, a check cashing place, and a pawn shop at the corner, then it is probably a lower socioeconomic area. Story 63. People walking and riding bicycles for sport versus job transportation. Women pushing strollers. Very few cars parked at the curb. Story 64. The houses have a reasonable amount of space between them, and the lawns are green and maintained. A modern-day tract neighborhood located on the outskirts of town, consisting of recession-era properties that were foreclosures rented out relatively cheaply, will be cramped, have limited parking, and be full of unmaintained lawns. Story 65. Just seeing some flower pots, a tomato plant, or even a random garden gnome shows that people truly care about their space. Story 66. No speed bumps, no bars on windows, no dogs chained in the front yard, well-maintained yards and homes, no fences with barbed wire, glass shards, or nails. Story 67. 1. No burglar bars on the doors and windows. 2. No fences or gates in the front yards. 3. No sounds of gunshots and police helicopters. 4. No city bus routes nearby. 5. No pawn shops, cash advance businesses, or title loan places nearby. Story 68. Nice gardens. It shows that people care about the way their houses look, which usually extends to how their neighborhoods are managed. My neighborhood is lower income for the area, but everyone has nice gardens. Story 69. Lululemon. Story 70. Adults walk and ride bicycles not because they have to go somewhere, but simply because they enjoy it. Story 71. Good neighborhood. Women walking with strollers during the day. Bad neighborhood. Unemployed men hanging out during the day. Story 72. Neighborhood watch disbanded due to lack of crime. Food trucks come to the neighborhood a couple of times a month. There is an active social committee that plans activities for all ages throughout the year. People turn out with their lawn chairs and listen to local musicians who play monthly. People are more than neighbors. They become friends. People in the neighborhood set off more fireworks than the city. Yes, Tennessee is a right to blow yourself up state. Story 73. Go to the local grocery store and large retail store. What is their condition? If they are unkempt and other shoppers are not friendly, meaning at least courteous and willing to give a smile or a nod when trying to get around each other, then I assume the neighborhood is low-key not great. Story 74. Furniture outside that is not chained down, walkable back alleys, small corner libraries and book exchanges. Story 75. For me, in Seattle, Washington, if you go to the Safeway and both entrances are open, you know you are in a good neighborhood. Story 76. Chris Rock had a good bit on this. Look around in the middle of the day. If you see women in cute outfits going about their business, you are probably in a good neighborhood. If what you see is men in tank tops everywhere, you are probably in danger. Story 77. People smile and wave at you, even if you are a stranger. People take walks with their young children. People leave their windows open. People leave semi-expensive, everyday items outside unattended. There is minimal or no trash on the ground, and all of the streetlights work. Story 78. In my opinion, the cars matter. I do not mean everyone needs a nice car. Are the vehicles in decent condition and parked correctly? Or are there multiple old, damaged cars parked in the yard or on the street? Story 79. Look up town events online or gauge if the community is open to town events if someone makes the effort. I live in a small town with more cows and crops than people, but we have 4 town events each season to bring locals together and attract new residents. Check if there is local trick-or-treating if you are in the United States. Drive around at night and listen. Is it a town where you hear a shot every 30 minutes or once every 4 hours because it is hunting season? Are there park benches along Main Street? How many parks are there? Do they look nice and maintained? Are they walkable? Even if you do not have children, do this. Check out the library and see if information about the town is posted, including its hours. Story 80. Packages and items like bicycles are not immediately stolen. Misdelivered packages and lost items are returned to you. Your neighbors are not untrustworthy if they leave your belongings alone. Story 81. To add to the many kid-related answers, are the fences in the neighborhood in good repair? Are they 5 to 6 feet tall and solid or 2 to 4 feet chain link? Are there locks on the fences? Super manicured lawns indicate a homeowners association or just well-off people. If the fences are in decent repair, the yard is in good condition, and there are toys in view, it is probably a great neighborhood if you like children. Story 82. No adult men riding bicycle motocross bikes, and well-put-together women walking their children during the day or taking them to the park. Paid a pretty penny to find that in the Bay Area, and it is worth every penny. Story 83. Keeping others' belongings untouched. I once left my keys still in the keyhole. I was panicking when I remembered because I would be gone for more than 4 hours. Upon returning, my keys were still there. Nothing had disappeared inside the house either. From then on, I grew confident that I have good neighbors. Story 84. Clean gutters and healthy-looking street trees and median strip plants without trash or dead plants. Story 85. Drive-through at night. Is it locked down, or are garages open? Bikes on lawn. Toys lying out. Car windows open. No security signs on every lawn. Think like a thief. If it is easy to steal from, they must be pretty safe. Story 86. Families playing in the street. My neighbors held street basketball matches. A few houses up, all the kids go swimming in the pool. People are out walking, waving, and making small talk. No dog waste from people walking their dogs. Story 87. Well-maintained neighborhood parks with many children. Parents trust the park and children want to go there. Excellent signage. Story 88. The neighbors, the people that live there. I love my neighborhood. Some of my neighbors are way too nosy and pushy, and it irritates me a lot. But I came from a tough neighborhood. These people, no matter what, would help me if I needed it, and I would and have helped them back. Yes, I have some super nosy neighbors, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have that than live in a community where it's every person for themselves. Story 89. I look for bakeries or breakfast spots. Also, people riding bicycles during the day indicate a good neighborhood. People riding bicycles in the middle of the night indicate a bad neighborhood. Story 90. When there is a loud bang, your first thought is, oh, fireworks, and you rush to the window to see it. Story 91. The number of people reporting every trivial matter on the neighborhood Facebook group page is increasing. The more individuals on the lookout, the better. Story 92. People walking for exercise at night. especially older white individuals who become frightened if they see a shadow. Story 93. When my family moved to a new neighborhood a few Octobers ago, some of our neighbors stopped by to tell us that the neighborhood as a whole celebrates and decorates for Halloween. There are no massive spooky teen and up haunted houses that go out of their way to scare people. There are always decorations up for the holidays, and most notably, the decorations are not at risk of being stolen or vandalized. I will be the first to admit I have many gripes with my living situation, but the neighborhood and its enjoyment of Halloween are definitely not on that list. Story 94. Young children playing outside. I always lived in several different apartments before we bought a place, and I never saw children playing outside on their own, only the occasional group of teenagers walking home from school. Story 95. Children are playing in their yards when the streetlights are ready to come on. In my old neighborhood, all children were inside behind locked doors well before sundown. Where I live now, I see and hear children playing in their yards later. Story 96. People going for walks and stopping for a chat with a neighbor. Children playing outside. People working in their gardens. Story 97. The local Facebook group is mostly about lost cats and garage sales instead of crime reports. The most exciting post last month was about someone's gnome collection being knocked over by the wind. Story 98. When I see elderly ladies walking their dogs at dusk without a care in the world, it touches me deeply. I have been living in my neighborhood for 6 years now, and watching Mrs. Peterson take her evening stroll with her old poodle feels special. Story 99. A lack of closed-circuit television. Doorbell cameras are one thing, but when multiple houses have closed-circuit television cameras, it indicates insecurity. A street with few or no cameras generally indicates safety. Story 100. One of the colleagues I work with lives in an area where there are many homeless people, some with serious mental health issues. He tells me he has to carry a firearm when he mows his lawn because some of them are not thinking clearly and do not listen to reason. He assumes I probably carry a firearm when I mow my lawn too. I told him absolutely not, as my children play outside all the time and I have no concerns about that. He thought his situation was the same everywhere. I would add that people walking with and without dogs on a regular basis also shows it is a safe place to live. Story 101. You actually see your neighbors in their yards, out walking the block, or doing other activities. Gardens are a very good sign. If multiple people are maintaining flower beds and vegetables, it means they feel quite comfortable there. Story 102. Streetlights. A well-lit neighborhood, especially if the poles and lighting are decorative, will deter crime and improve nightlife. Story 103. How police officers interact with residents. Even in very nice, safe neighborhoods, police officers get called occasionally. We had an incident where some teenagers were acting foolishly. An officer was called, and he basically just scolded the boys, then made them walk over and apologize. Then he scolded them some more and said that he would take stronger action if he had to come back because of their misconduct. He was confident it would not happen again. You do not get tough love situations like that in unsafe areas. Story 104. We moved to a nice neighborhood a few years ago, and I have no intention of ever leaving. Some things that are different here. People who are walking always wave as I drive by. We live in New York, and this is rare here. Women walk alone or with their dog at any time, day or night. Everyone here seems to know each other. We have met almost everyone in our neighborhood at least once while walking the dogs or otherwise. My neighbor and I leave a golf cart in the driveway with the keys in it and have never had a problem. Bikes, tools, and kids' toys are always safe when left in the driveway overnight. I have accidentally left the garage door open many times and nobody came to check it out. Story 105. This reminds me of an old Rodney Dangerfield joke. I live in a tough neighborhood. It is tough. After I moved in, I asked a police officer, "How long is the walk to the subway?" He said, "I do not know. No one has ever made it." Story 106. Working-age people are working during normal business hours. If it is 2 p.m. on a Tuesday and you see a group of 30-something-year-old men loitering, it is the ghetto. Also, you do not have a Walmart or dollar store within your city limits. Story 107. General landscaping. unsecured outdoor seasonal flower pots and decorations at entrances. For example, chrysanthemums and scarecrows in the fall. Story 108, House Hunting. I made a list of neighborhood no-nos and things to avoid that I think would fit well here. Liquor stores and laundromats. People standing around places that aren't meant to be stood around, such as storefronts. Bars on windows. Check cashing places and buy here pay here car lots. Pawn shops. Close proximity to churches, chicken and waffle house. Shot spotter devices in parking lots. Strip clubs. Cricket stores. Places that need painting or have crumbling construction, such as neighborhood entrance signs. I know this is the opposite, but a lack of these things I think would indicate a better neighborhood. Story 109. For me, it is the little things like neighbors who actually say hello, local shops that stay open late, and children playing outside. If those vibes are good, the place usually is too. Story 110. Fences. The cleaner, neater, and better maintained the fences, the nicer the neighborhood. They range from broken, falling apart, rusty chain link to wood privacy fences, to ornate custom fences made of various materials, notably stone and wrought iron. Fences can surround the entire yard and driveway, just the backyard, or the whole property again as you go up in price and general quality. Story 111. Glass door neighborhoods. My wife and I joke about how fancy a neighborhood is based on how many glass front doors there are. Story 112. How many self-checkout registers are at the neighborhood grocery store? Safer suburbs have many of them. Is anything locked up or behind the counter? How protected is the physical bank teller? Thick bulletproof glass with a rotating tray to exchange money is bad. Lounge-like lobby with flat television and tellers with short glass open at face height is good. Story 113. People turn up their noses at older neighborhoods with an eclectic style, such as unusual lawn ornaments and mismatched paint colors. However, if the residents have been taking the time to work on their houses and yards, that is a good sign. Just because they do not have a homeowners association and professional landscapers maintaining their yards to look like a bland corporate style does not mean they are lowlifes. Story 114. Mini blinds. From living in both good and bad parts of town, they are the most underrated signal. If all the houses have damaged mini blinds, such as broken, bent, or missing slats, it is a good indicator of lower income and less care. However, if the mini blinds are all in good shape, it is probably a decent place as people keep up with maintenance and appearances. Story 115. I live in a neighborhood that many have described, but a lot of my neighbors have made low-key racist remarks. It is all about perspective, I guess. Story 116. Pro tip. Go to the nearest grocery or large retail store and observe how well maintained it is, as well as the types of items they sell. The higher the quality, the better. Story 117. Children, women walking dogs or babies, elders, joggers, bikers, all wandering around. Neighbors waving to each other. When garages are left open, neighbors call, text, or drop by to confirm all is well. When a car is in for repairs and is normally left in the driveway, neighbors check in to see what is happening. When natural events like storms or power outages occur, neighbors check on each other and clear brush. Neighbors drop off mail accidentally left at the wrong home. I am blessed to have all this, and I also nurture it. Story 118. Funny, there is hardly anyone who would classify my neighborhood as safe, but most of these comments still apply. Friendly neighbors waving and chatting? Yes. People walking around at all times of day? Yes. Gang tags and immigration enforcement raids? Also yes. Story 119. Women chatting on the porch at midday on a weekday? Safe as can be. Men chatting on the porch at midday on a weekday? The complete opposite. Story 120. If you can see hoses attached to people's houses, that is usually a sign there is not a lot of petty theft in the neighborhood. Story 121. I was always told to look at the cars in the neighborhood. Not to see how expensive or fancy they are, but to observe how well people maintain their cars. If you see a bunch of cars that are clean and seem well maintained, not noisy, not leaking or smoking, with decent tires, it is probably a decent neighborhood. But if most or all of the cars look broken down or dirty, or if there are cars on blocks in the front yard, I would probably hesitate. Story 122. If there are no large apartment complexes nearby, it is usually a good indicator. The best way to get an idea is by looking at police logs and seeing how many calls they receive from the street and the surrounding area. There is a street I know that looks really nice and residential but has constant problems. Story 123. I love my little neighborhood. We wave at neighbors, ask for help or favors when needed, share friendly gossip about goings-on, feel safe and peaceful. And the most important thing is I don't lock my car doors in my driveway because crime where I am is minimal. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.